Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today's Wednesday, October 29th, 2025, and no mortgage renewal for land impacted by BC First Nations claim. We're going to start there today, and that should have been the end of my little teaser section here. Oh, well, it is a very interesting situation because of what's happened with the land rights in British Columbia. Now that's having a direct impact on being able to renew your mortgage, and that's not very good. And so we'll start there. Trade relationship meltdown for Canada. Apparently, the ambassador to Ontario from the United States was yelling at, I can't remember who the representative was in Ontario, and there was a whole big kerfuffle at the usually there's a toast, there's an event to celebrate trade between Canada and the United States, and usually the ambassador and the representative stand up and have a nice little toast, and everybody has a nice dinner, and everybody goes home and says, that's nice. But things happen differently last night or recently, and so I'll tell you that story. Murder in the United Kingdom. So a man was walking his dog and was killed by an Afghan invader, stabbed to death on his sidewalk just walking his dog. So England is not safe, and well, according to Sadiq Khan, be quiet with your racist ways, right? Like this is not something that they're going to deal with. Not yet, anyway, and not without digital IDs and central bank digital currencies, because that's the plan. Problem action solution, right? Or problem reaction solution. Apparently, we're heading into an election. I've been talking about it for a few days, and people have been saying, no, the NDP they can't afford an election. They'll do whatever the Liberals tell them to. If the NDP do that and prop up the Liberals again, I don't think they'll win any more seats, and they may cease to exist as a party. Whereas if they trigger an election, broke or not, they may continue to survive another day. So we'll see. I may be wrong. Maybe the NDP will prop up this budget too, and it's another Jagmeet Singh situation, but maybe not. I have not that I can't predict that. My gut says they won't do that, but reality sometimes is very different than what my gut says. So I didn't think that they'd be able to get the masking stuff through the summertime of 2020 or 21. But here we are, right? Things didn't happen the way I thought. Alberta has accidentally triggered the separatist referendum. It looks like it, maybe, kind of, sort of. And Alberta is sending their teachers back to work using the notwithstanding clause. And Mark Carney's conflict of interests have been voted on to be investigated by the House of Commons. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we've got to start with land rights in British Columbia. What land rights? Who needs land rights, right? We don't need land rights, not when the First Nation have all of the land. And so this guy says, listen, I tried to renew my mortgage, and the bank said, no mas. Steve says Richmond property owners who says he's owned his home since 1975 and has been paying taxes on it, has been told by his lender that they won't be renewing his mortgage after First Nations land claim. This is just the beginning. So he says, I'm not leaving, right? So here's this guy in the exchange.
And now, talk to your local MLA is what we're getting.
I think the man should kill earlier than the 2025.
Yep.
What contribute is not telling you too? We're not having a story for you like you asked. We have a story for you.
He doesn't have any answers. He knew what's going on. He sat there and enjoyed his $400,000 a year he makes.
Yes.
That's what I'm bitter, yes. My tax dollars are at work right now. And who knows? I thought at least we're going to get a gift card out of this deal. Got nothing here tonight.
Are you going to continue to fight?
Oh, definitely. I'll be filing suit and stuff, right? I'll find out what my avenue is to go forward to protect my land. I've owned my land for more than enough years to know it's mine. I'm not giving it up without a fight.
Did you say something about reconciliation? What does that mean to you?
No comment on that. I don't want to get started on that.
So this is just about land rights.
It's a trap. What do you think about reconciliation, sir? He goes on to say that he feels like he's been paying taxes for years, and at the end he gets nothing, not even a gift card, right? So he's been paying taxes on this property for years, and he's having the rug pulled out from under him. This is a Richmond conservative MLA, Richmond, British Columbia, says the Cowichan decision has her feeling like she's moving backwards towards her colonial experience in Hong Kong, where one never truly owned their property under the influence of communist China. I love this lady. So she makes a good point. If you work for 100 years, you'll never own your land. They'll take it back and give it to somebody else. Here we go.
When people doubt the security of their homes or the durability of their investment, everything is at risk. Many of my constituents are Chinese Canadians who came to this country because it represents fairness and stability. For them, owning a home is not only a financial goal, it is a symbol of belonging and security. When I bought my first property in Hong Kong, it was under a 99-year lease. That was a system under colonial rule. You could work your whole life and still know that in the end, the land did not truly belong to you. When I bought my home here in Canada, I felt immense relief knowing that this property was mine forever. But today, as I listen to the fears in my community, I worry they are moving backward toward that same uncertainty I once left behind. That is why these issues matter so deeply to me and to so many others. A home should be secure. Ownership should be permanent. People should not live in doubt about something so fundamental. In Chinese, we often say, 安居乐业, 安居乐业, which means to live in peace and work happily. That is what people want, peace in their homes and stability in their lives. Madam Speaker, that peace is being tested now. The Premier must act immediately to restore confidence. He must state clearly that no homeowner...
Member, just a minute. There's free latitude in terms of private member statements, but direct attacks against opposition are discouraged. So just like to remind you about that.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, thanks. So she says that the Premier should be encouraged to speak out against this. Here is Tara Armstrong, and she's highlighting that she's asked the NDP to stop humiliating kids with land acknowledgements. And the NDP, well, the Speaker... She says, just ask the NDP to stop humiliating kids with land acknowledgements in class, and the Speaker of the House, who's supposed to be neutral, told them not to answer. So there is a coordinated attack to silence anybody questioning what exactly is going on. What do you mean by a land acknowledgement? Are you going to hand your condo over to a First Nation band, or are you just speaking nonsense? Because it seems like you're speaking nonsense. And if you want to hand over land you own, not land in the public sphere, right? And it's very interesting telling the response. Here we go.
If you want to humiliate your children at school, send them here to us in British Columbia. I have a document in front of me from the government's own curriculum guidance for teachers. It instructs that students are to develop a, quote, mindset of cultural humility. Cultural humility. In our classrooms, our kids are being taught to not take pride in their culture, Canada's incredible culture, but to be ashamed of it. That's because this government and every other party in this House, they continue to defend the practice of land acknowledgements in our classrooms, the pinnacle of humiliation rituals. They shame our kids for having the wrong ancestors, and they impose false guilt for crimes they did not commit, and in many cases events which never even happened.
This issue is also before the House. If
Our
member
kids
has
should be
another
taught to be
question.
proud of Canadian culture because we have the best culture in the world. My question is for the Minister of Education. Why is her government humiliating our kids instead of teaching them?
Member, although the issue raised by the member was before the House and it was rejected by the House, but I leave it up to the Minister to her discretion if she would like to answer.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It is very unfortunate that this member continues to raise this line of questioning in this House. We have made it very, very clear to the member and to every single person in this House that our BC is a welcoming place. Our schools need to be a safe place, no matter how you look, what you wear, where you come from, what your background is. Everything we do is grounded in keeping kids safe and making them feel included and welcome. There was once upon a time in this House where...
What about a child who has a parent who owned their home since 1975 and now the mortgage won't renew because of your ridiculous land acknowledgements? How is that safe and keeping people safe? It doesn't. How does a land acknowledgement keep anybody safe? It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous waste of time that is ignored by most people. And these Karens who think it's important have absolutely no idea what it takes to keep people safe. Because what it keeps to keep people safe are men with guns who know how to use them. See the Lord of the Rings, right? Like you hobbits. Here's Quebec Anon, and he says, let's talk about freedom of speech very quickly. Quebec Anon says, the very individuals attempting to implement Bill C-8 to control misinformation are the same ones who produced a $73 million commercial filled with misinformation. So there's that, right? Oh yes, we've got to regulate your speech while we destroy our relationship with the United States of America. No thanks, guys. No thanks. How about stop wrecking things, please? Matt Alexander says land acknowledgements. Oh, this should have been in the land acknowledgement area. Land acknowledgement communism has made its way to the Blue Jays game at the World Series. We'll talk about the Blue Jays game later in the show. Jeremy McKenzie has a response to why the Blue Jays being in the World Series is kind of low on his priority list this year. And I agree with him. So anyway, land acknowledgement communism has made its way to the Blue Jays game at the World Series. I'm not going to play this. During the singing of the national anthem yesterday, the lyrics were changed. Our home on native land instead of our home and native land. And it's all intentional. They aren't letting up. So this guy's a no talent hack who is singing "Oh Canada" and changing the words because of politics. And what a loser, right? Honestly. Juno News says access to information documents show that Parks Canada canceled American Sean Foyt's Halifax concert after heavily political and public pressure, despite officials voicing internal concerns about clamping down on freedom of expression. So there was political pressure to cancel his concert, and there was no safety risk. The only safety risk was far left radicals who threaten violence, who, if they threaten violence, they should be arrested. If they're going to do crap like that to shut down concerts, they should be arrested and charged. All we need to do is enforce our laws as written. Like stop being a crybaby who, when you don't get your way, you threaten violence. And then when people show up to arrest you, you act surprised, right? Like and the government's trying to make saying things online illegal. And again, I don't want violence. I'm not trying to incite violence on anybody. I'm trying to read news headlines and give you funny hot takes, or at least chuckly, like, a little bit funny, make you smile hot takes rather than, crying into your cereal and or coffee. It's not fun. And so they're going to just say, though, that me having theories about why people are acting against the benefit of the nation, that's a terrorism. And sorry, we've got to take Mark offline now because he might commit more terrorism in the future because of, all that terrorism that he commits now by being skeptical of whatever the government and things like that. And that's unacceptable. But that's the direction that we're going. That's what they want. I don't trust Grokkopedia. The Grokkopedia has been released, so you can get to Grokkopedia by going to grokkopedia.com, and then you can type in a question or whatever, and then you'll get the Grokkopedia article on that thing. And I don't trust Wired. I don't trust AI that can be programmed by humans, because there are things that I know that are not true that Grok thinks are true. And so if Grok can be influenced that easily, then I'll stick with books published before 1920. I think 1920 was the cutoff year. Anyway, Elon Musk is responding to Wired. Wired says, Elon Musk's Grokkopedia pushes far-right talking points. Oh no, it's a far-right AI. Elon Musk says Wired, The Atlantic, The Guardian, and many other propaganda legacy publications would die immediately if they had to support themselves. Donations from far-left organizations disguised as charities are what keep them alive. They serve simply as a means of influencing Wikipedia, Google, etc. as fake authoritative sources. Yeah, it looks like that to me. Here's Xavier. He says, today in France, 11 anonymous French citizens are being tried for cyberbullying for merely reposting on X in one way or another publications inspired by Becoming Bridget, my unauthorized biography of Bridget Macron, which has never been convicted or even prosecuted for defamation, and whose conclusions have never been contested. For retweeting jokes about Bridget Macron, these 11 French citizens, most of them chosen at random, including an 80% disabled person, were subject to months of close police surveillance. Their residences were searched, and they were placed in police custody as part of an operation led from the president led from the presidency by Patrick Faure, a former member of the DGSE, the French CIA, now Emmanuel Macron's chief of staff. On trial since yesterday, they face 3 years in prison and a 45,000 euro fine. Message to the world: don't let Emmanuel Macron or the French Republic lecture you on democracy anymore. So if you dare say that Macron, his wife, is a man, unless you're Candace Owens, no way, that's not happening. Candace Owens is, I think she's still saying that. And I have no reason to, I question it. I honestly question it, because holy smoke, right? And I think that the wool has been pulled over a lot of people's eyes, and it's plain as day isn't quite the word, but almost there. Spiked is talking about this too. Think Before You Post documentary, how Britain fell to a sinister new form of censorship. We spoke to the Brits locked up for social media posts. What we discovered was even more chilling than the headlines would have you believe. Let us know what you think. So this is on CanadaPoly.com as well, but this is a documentary about freedom of speech and in the UK. And if you want to check it out, just head over to CanadaPoly.com, and I think it's UK censorship documentary right there. So very, very scary stuff. I haven't watched this one yet, but I am interested in watching it. I'm still working on another documentary I was working on yesterday. So here is Mike Benz, and he's talking about Barack Obama. Vigilant Fox says, Barack Obama says the quiet part out loud. It's time to experiment with new forms of journalism with government regulatory constraints. Part of what we're going to have to do is start experimenting with new forms of journalism and how we use social media in ways that reaffirms facts and separates facts from fiction. Like Ronald Reagan being pro or against tariffs, like that fact and fiction. We want diversity of opinion. No, they don't. We don't want diversity of facts. Well, facts, how people feel about facts change with the circumstances. If you find out this man beat up that man, you would say, well, the man who beat up that other man is wrong. But if you found out that the beating up happened in the man's kitchen, the first man's who beat up the second man's kitchen at 3 a.m, and the second man had broken into the house, well, now the facts are different. Not different, facts are the same. Man A beat up man B, but now the sympathy of the crowd is different, right? You're like, well, hold on a second. That guy was in the kitchen improperly. He shouldn't have been there. He was breaking in. Was he stealing something? And then maybe you find out that he's a son-in-law. He wasn't stealing anything at all, right? It's a family dispute. And now it's like, well, now it's kind of muddy, right? Who knows? Who knows what this whole thing is, right? So should the man have been there? Maybe not, but has he been there before? He wasn't stealing. He's there, you're right? Like there's so many things. So we don't want diversity of facts. Yes, they do. They want the ability to frame things the way they want so that you will respond the way they want, right? And part of that is in the UK, and we're going to get to this later in the show, but we're almost at the time where I have to cut the feed. But in the UK, there was a guy who was killed while walking his dog, and there's video footage of the Afghan invader stabbing and killing this guy, and he hurt a couple of other people as well. And the British government is using online tools to remove that from the conversation. What's his name? Paul Joseph Watson says this should be the biggest story in the whole UK. This should be the leading story on every newspaper. This should be a game changer. This should be something that this should be like the Danforth shooting should have been in Canada, a big wake-up call. We should have realized the problem then. Because of the framing, because of the online harms bill, because of England's version of this ability to censor online, they are keeping this stuff under wraps so that the public doesn't know, or if they do know, they think it's some kind of conspiracy theory. They hide people like me. They censor people like me. And they're going to try and put people like me in jail. Not because we're bad and not because we've done anything against the law, but because we fundamentally threaten their power. Over a long enough period of time, the storytellers matter. And I've told you before, people who watch this show, you have to tell your family your story or everybody kind of loses the plot and people fracture and they go all sorts of different ways. That's why families that aren't physically close and see each other a lot just grow apart and they don't connect. Similarly, if the public stops listening to the CBC, the public stops listening to the narrative, then the people spinning that story, that narrative, lose control to the people who are telling a better story. We're watching that happen in the United States. The story Trump is telling, he's delivering, he's making promises, and he's delivering. So that's important. You can't tell a story and then not deliver. Okay, you have to back it up with things. And Trump's backing it up with investments. Trump's backing it up with jobs. Trump's backing it up with big dinners and big awards and things like that. So whereas Mark Carney's made promises and hasn't backed it up. He's made all these things. He said all these things. We're going to be an energy superpower. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. He's built bureaucracy. He hasn't built anything. He hasn't got jobs running. He hasn't got big investments. He can't prove it, right? And so if people stop listening to Mark Carney's story because he's not proving it, and they start listening to a different story, then the people who are trying to run Mark Carney's story as fact, even though he's not validating his story, have competition. And they don't want competition. They just want people to listen to this story and believe it. And they don't want to actually prove it. And that's where they're falling short. That's the problem. And that's why they're trying to censor the internet. Because if a lot of people start listening to stories that invalidate their narrative, then their narrative is blown up and they lose control. And that's fundamentally why they want the censorship. So they don't want diversity of facts. They want the ability to maintain control of the framing so they maintain control of their story or their narrative. And that's the utmost importance to them. Without that, they lose everything. So that's what's going on. That's it. We are not able to self-govern because we're not able or even really interested in discerning what's actually going on, right? And so self-governance is a fantasy because we have no friggin' clue what's even happening. I think the apparatus of the state is so complicated and complex that most of our leadership don't understand it. It's the bureaucrats that are running it, and they tell the leaders what to say, and that's that. And then somebody like Mark Carney comes in and says, the real problem here is people like Mark, the people who are skeptical of our plan, they're leading you astray. We need to silence them in order for national security reasons so we can move forward with our plan. Stuff like that. So pretty wild stuff. They don't want diversity of facts. They want the ability to control everything. So that's one of let's finish off Vigilant Fox. He says that I think is one of the big tasks of social media. It will require some government regulatory constraints. So social media needs to be constrained in order to maintain their narrative control. The last story before I kill the stream is this one. They're going to, or try to investigate Carney. My question is, what happens when they shut down the committee? Because they're going to shut down the committee. And then nothing happens, I guess. Michael Barrett is celebrating. Motion passed. He says, our motion orders top Brookfield execs and the Liberal government officials to committee. Canadians deserve to know the Prime Minister serves the public interest, not personal profit. It's time for accountability. And here is the vote. And gov.exe says the CPC, the NDP, and the Bloc, and the Greens all voted in favor of MPs expanding hearings on Mark Carney's conflict of interest, where the president of Brookfield, the CEO of Brookfield, Carney's chief of staff, and the clerk of the Privy Council will have to testify at committee. So do you think that's going to happen? Because I'm skeptical that's going to happen. I have a feeling. Remember when there were documents that were demanded, and then the guy who was supposed to deliver the documents came in and said, I'm not going to deliver the documents, and then absolutely nothing happened, right? Remember that? So I think we went to an election to protect those documents, right? So they're going to say no. They're not going to testify. If they testify, they're going to say, I plead the fifth. I don't remember. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I don't remember. I don't know. If they come in, it will be like watching GC strategies come in. Like, it will be a farce. We won't get any closer to knowing anything real, and more fool us, right? So arrest them and maybe we'll get somewhere else. Right? We've got to talk about trade. We've got our grab bag of governance. We've got Alberta. We've got two big stories out of Alberta. Honestly, the separatist referendum has been handed in, and I don't know if it's been validated, but it seems like everybody's like, "Woo, we're having the separatist. We're doing this before Christmas, everybody. Let's go. We're going to be our own country by 2026." And the Alberta teachers have been ordered back. We've got a whole bunch of stuff with grab bag of governance. I've got Trump news independent of trade news, but I've got Trump news on the trade news, so there's lots more show. If you want the rest of the show, head over to CanadaPoly.com. If not, that's okay. We'll catch you tomorrow. And for everybody else, we will carry on right after I kill the stream. Right now. And we're all done. And here's our trade governance stuff, our grab bag of trade. That's what I meant. Toronto